Good to see you. My name is Felicity Ezewike. The R21 Matrix M malaria vaccine is expected to address the prevention of malaria in children from 5 months to 36 months. Nigeria is the second country globally to approve the vaccine. The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, recently gave provisional approval for its use in the country, but there are concerns. While the efficacy is being put at up to 80%, the WHO has cautioned that the vaccine still needs to undergo more trials. WHO country representative to Nigeria, Dr. Walter Mulombo, made this known when he spoke at a media parley at the UN House in Abuja on Tuesday. Let's, however, quickly note that he also restated the importance of the efficacy of the vaccine already adopted by countries like Ghana and Kenya. There is an urgency here. Nigeria has the highest prevalence of malaria in the world with over 27% and the highest number of global malaria deaths of 32%. But it also has a checkered history with meeting targets. Nigeria did not participate in the pilot testing of the vaccine because of failure to ensure the high coverage of long-lasting insecticidal treated nets, lack of well-functioning malaria and immunization programs, among other issues. There is also the question of funding. Nigeria missed an opportunity to apply to the International Vaccine Financing Organization, that's Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. It is also unclear if it participated in another opening that just closed. To speak on this, I have on the square with me Dr. Paul Olaiya, public health expert, UN consultant, currently supporting emergency at Swaziland, and also Dr. Philip Njamanze, chairman, Chidikon Medical Center. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the square.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'll start with you, Dr. Olaiya. It's been touted as a game changer in the fight against malaria. Please break it down and explain for those who might not know about this new vaccine.
Yeah, I think the new vaccine is called, can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me audibly,
yes,
please?
Very audible. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I think it's good for us to know the new name of the new vaccine. It's not the first malaria vaccine. I think it's good for us to know that. We have the RTX, which was the first vaccine that was approved in October 21, by WHO for use. Of course, that was accounted for about 30% potency in terms of addressing the severe cases. So the new vaccine that we have now, which you can say is a game changer. When you use the word game changer, mean from 35% or from 30% of efficacy from the last vaccine, the R21 Matrix M vaccine provide about 75% to 80% efficacy. Of course, it's a highly anticipated vaccine, and it's still on the trial stage. And it's good to also know that Ghana became the first country in the world to approve the use of this vaccine. And of course, it's a game changer because when you look at where we had before from 30% efficacy to 75 to 80%, of course, you know that that's a lot of game changer. A lot of gain have been made, So I think that is why we call it a game changer, because a lot of life is going to be affected. And when you look at how many people that die in Africa region, like last year alone, over 600,000 people died. So imagine if this vaccine had been available, so 600,000 deaths be affected, and that is significant.
Very significant indeed.
So,
let's bring in Dr. Njamanze. The concerns being raised, as much as the vaccine has high efficacy, like Dr. Olaiya has already said, there are concerns about continued trials, and it's coming from the World Health Organization. What are your thoughts? Is Nigeria being a bit too hasty in approving it? It's the second country, by the way, in the world. Dr. Njamanze, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes. Did you get my question? Or
okay, very good. Yes, as you highlighted, the problem of malaria in Nigeria is a major problem, with 27% of the prevalence rate in the world and 32% of mortality. So this is very, very important. However, with use of vaccines or medical measures, we must have to have, first and foremost, precautionary measures. That means that we will implement them after all the necessary tests have been done. This is very, very important because you are taking potentially healthy people and you're giving them a vaccine. So you don't want to, there is no real room for mistake. So that is why the precautionary measures must always be forefront. So any approval should only be based on all the tests coming in. And I really support the point of the WHO saying that Nigeria should have been more cautious in being the first or the second or the third to approve a vaccine really doesn't add any value to it. It just means that you might offer yourself as an experimental population if anything was to go wrong. So I think Nigeria, I think the NAFDAC is walking that back a little bit and saying that the necessary checks must be done and concluded before any approval can be given. And people are talking about this being a game changer. You have to understand that this is still for the under 5. For now, it's between 5 months and 36 months. So really, this is covering a very important population where we have a lot of mortality rates. However, it's still a very small part of our population who suffers from malaria. And I must say, vaccines cannot really be a game changer. But the prevalence of malaria elsewhere in most of the countries, especially the advanced countries, was done by vector control. So that they control the vectors, and once they control the vectors, the main carrier was no more a big problem. So vector control will still remain forefront, and we should also pay attention to that. And of course, the adult population, how will you deal with that? We have been suggesting that basically what you need to do is to have everybody take anti-malarials every 3 months in a year, and at the same time, simultaneously, so that we will have the overall rate of those who are carriers of the parasites in blood to be very low, and then the transmission rates will be low. And then, of course, we have to do active vector control program. The government has not been very responsible in doing that in cities, because you see most of the Nigerian cities, the gutters are stagnant, and these are breeding sites for the vector. And no matter what measures you put in without a vector control, you will still have residual cases of death.
All right, Dr. Njamanze, you raise a very important point, and that's the adult population, getting them to getting the rate of infection and those that get the disease to be less. That way, we wouldn't need so much, we wouldn't be glorifying the vaccine that we have at the moment. Let me come to you, Dr. Olaiya. We have a checkered history of implementation. That's one of the reasons that was given for Nigeria's exclusion from the pilot stage. How optimistic are you that NAFDAC indeed went through all the hoops to ensure that this drug is, this vaccine is suitable for us, that there are no side effects? Or is this a roundabout way of experimenting with the vaccine?
Yeah, that was a very nice question coming from you. It's good to know that provisional approval was given. And when we talk about provisional approval, there are a lot of reasons why provisional approval are given. Maybe because they have to subject that to a lot of research, they have to look at the data. And of course, why provisional approval has been, was given, we also need to look at a lot of similarity between Nigeria and Ghana. Of course, in terms of diversity, we share a lot of things in common, and there is these common things that that people share, that when things can work in Ghana, for example, or Nigeria can easily work also in Ghana. We share a lot of things in common. And if this vaccine had been piloted in a place like Ghana, in terms of geographical location, in terms of a lot of things in common. So I think NAFDAC may not be wrong, because we need to understand that this is a provisional approval, which means we are still studying what is coming.
Provisional. You're speaking from a very learned position. But once you say approval, most of the headlines is NAFDAC has approved the new vaccine. Most people are not looking at whether it is provisional or not. So if NAFDAC has done this, and then you're making an analogy that Ghana has maybe crossed their T's and dotted their I's, that is Ghana. Nigeria is supposed to be setting standard. Are we setting standards with being the first, among the first, to approve this drug this vaccine without going through the hoops? Or, I really don't know how to end that question, really.
I understand. Maybe why you said any country could set a standard, it all depends. When you look at the trial, for example, you look at the population of Nigeria. Nigeria is about over 200 million people, Ghana about 30 million people. Of course, you can be looking at that as, okay, maybe Nigeria should be setting the standard. But scientifically, of course, when you're talking about clinical trials, there is a certain number of people that is required to carry out that clinical trials. And if clinical trials have been carried out, and now we are at the piloting stage where this vaccine is being piloted across a few regions in Ghana. And it is found out that this is going to be a real game changer, because when you look at the children under 5 that have been affected and now, coming with a vaccine that have efficacy up to 80%. Of course, if in a class, if somebody go to class and said you score 80% over 100, and the student was performing like 35% before, with 80%, you know that these students have already, this is going to be a blow. So what I'm saying is that there's something wrong for Nigeria to set a standard. Ghana also set a standard. Any country that have the capacity will actually set a standard. It's not by means of the population or by the capacity. It all depends on availability and the willingness and the leadership, ownership of that particular government of the country.
All right, Dr. Njomanze, the vaccine went through a final pilot test rollout in Ghana, Kenya, and our understanding even Malawi. Already, they say 1.5 million children have been vaccinated across these 3 countries. My question would be, what has the response been like? Has there been any useful feedback that gives you confidence that Nigeria's position with this provisional approval is indeed the right one?
Well, we don't do clinical trials because there is efficacy only. That is just one criterion. We do clinical trials to identify special populations, special needs of special people, what are the drug interactions, what could happen unexpectedly, are there allergies that are there? So all these precautions is why you need a trial, regardless of the fact if it was done in the United States, in Ghana, or any other country. So you still have to do that in Nigeria because every population has some peculiarities. And even in Nigeria, you can't just generalize. So you might have clinical trial centers in all 6 geopolitical zones. So this has to be done in order to make sure that we can identify special issues that will not be outlined by the trial in Kenya or the trial in Ghana or elsewhere. This will be highlighted by the trials in Nigeria. And that's what the WHO is saying. And I fully agree that there must be precautionary measures. Provisional approval doesn't really mean much if you will not release the drug to the public. What should be done is that the trials must be done according to standards set and the precautionary measures taken before you implement that for mass vaccination. And the other problem is, now you are having so much mixed messages. This will now yield to can translate to vaccine resistance in terms of people resisting it, not being sure. So this is why this public relations mishap, I will call it, could have been avoided by just going through the proper procedures of having all the trials done and finally approving the drug so you can carry everybody along.
So there are no feedback that you know of, is there?
Yeah, well, yeah, the feedback, if I understood your question correctly, has to be there. NAFDAC will collect the information from different trial centers, and then what we have observed, should it be different from what has been observed in other populations, we will not, that is collated and put in. So, for example, you will say that those who are having measles should not have this vaccine, okay? For example, if that is established.
Okay,
so
I have to interject.
This is a special population that you have to take precaution for.
I have to interject, Doctor. I'm told we have less than 2 minutes to conclude this segment. So I'll go to Dr. Olanya quickly. In my introduction, I talked about funding. There are concerns. Nigeria missed opportunity to tap into the Gavi fund. We know that another opportunity just closed. Where would the funding for this vaccine? It's not coming cheap and nobody's giving it to us free. So where do you think this funding will come from? And again, concern about implementation. One of the reasons Nigeria was not part of the pilot phase was because we have failed consistently over time to meet deadline. What are the possibility that this vaccine we're so bent on will get the correct treatment from Nigeria? Quickly, if you can say this in 40 seconds or a minute, max.
All right. I think the first one, you talk about funding. Funding from Gavi. Gavi has been a major pillar to a lot of vaccination program in Africa and of course globally. If the door closed in Gavi, I still believe there could be high level write-up of requests, making this request. And let us not forget that the vaccine is just at the pilot stage. The complete rollout is not yet, happened. It's not yet that this vaccine is completely available now everywhere. It's going. So about 20 member states have requested for this vaccine. And of course, when you talk about funding, apart from Gavi funding, government could also, a lot of politicians, a lot of companies in Nigeria could also be responsible to say, okay, we want to, as part of our corporate official responsibility, we want to support this. So I don't believe that we need to say
worry
Gavi
about funding.
Because because Gavi funding is being paid back. Gavi funding is not, it's just like you are getting it, but you are still paying it back in a way. Okay. So we need to understand that.
That was an important clarification, because each time we talk about funding, it's like it's free.
It's not a free funding. Yeah. The government still find a way of, paying back. And when you look at the 30 countries in Africa, 54 countries in Africa, only Nigeria still not have opportunity to manufacture any of the vaccine that is being available.
That's a whole subject for another day. I'm sure we will explore that subsequently.
Yeah, I think because of the time.
Yes, because of time.
The final word is that the vaccine is safe, and I can tell you that a lot of things, just like the doctor have said, with all the control of the vectors, vaccine will also play a lot of roles, because this affected children under 5. All right,
sir. I have to interject again. Dr. Njemanze, in 30 seconds, if you can, I want you to conclude your thought on something you said about adult population. If this is a game changer, even though you don't seem to agree, what about the adult population eradication of malaria? Because, like you said, it's an important aspect. Could you speak on that in 40 seconds, Max, please?
Yeah, we can do that. And very simply so, and very, very cheap, using artemisinin-based combinations. The main innovation there is we will take all the anti-malarials on the same day across the country. So you have 4 malarial days every 3 months. For 2 good years, we do that at the same time. Why is it necessary? When you take the anti-malarials at the same time, in most people around you, there will be no parasites in their blood. What this means is that even if the mosquito bites them, they will not be transmitting the parasite. This is a very simple way to eradicate malaria in the adult population.
Thank you very much, Dr. Njamanze, Philip Njamanze, Chairman, Chidikon Medical Center, for sharing your thoughts, as well as Dr. Olaya for speaking with us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.